In this video, we will define nonprofits, describe how they positively impact the economy, and summarize those key distinctions between nonprofit and for-profit organizations. First, let's start by defining nonprofits. You probably think you know what they are, but there are a lot of misconceptions about them. Nonprofits are organizations that exist to advance a social cause or provide a public benefit. Now, the difference here is they don't operate to generate profits for owners or shareholders. However, they do want to generate a profit. The difference is just where it goes. Instead of going to owners or shareholders, any excess revenue they earn is reinvested back into the organization to further the mission. Nonprofits can take many forms. There are charities, educational institutions, and advocacy groups, and they all share this common goal: to serve the public rather than private interests. Now, as I mentioned, nonprofits, they're often misunderstood. While they don't distribute profits to owners or shareholders, as I mentioned, they do still aim to generate revenue and operate efficiently, just like a for-profit company. The difference is where that money goes. All that extra revenue is going toward the nonprofit's bottom line, and in this case, that bottom line is the nonprofit's work toward achieving its mission, not individual gain. Nonprofits are huge. They have a significant impact on the economy, both in the United States and globally. In the US, for example, there are nearly 1.8 million nonprofit organizations that collectively employ over 12 million people. Believe it or not, this accounts for more than 10% of the private workforce, making the nonprofit sector one of the largest employers. Globally, nonprofits, they play a smaller role, but still significant, accounting for about 7.4% of the workforce in many countries. Their impact is far-reaching, contributing about 4.5% to the gross domestic product, or GDP, in several nations. So nonprofit organizations, they aren't just helping people. They're creating jobs, they're driving economic growth, and they're contributing to a strong, resilient economy. From healthcare and education to environmental protection, human rights, and human services, nonprofits touch almost every aspect of society. Nonprofits' ability to generate economic activity while serving the public makes them a powerful force for good. Now let's shift to the distinctions between nonprofit and for-profit organizations. A lot of times people think nonprofits are a completely different animal, vastly different than for-profit enterprise, but they're more alike than they are different. They just have some notable distinctions. Although both types of organizations generate revenue and require management, the most important difference is, as I noted before, how those profits are used. In a for-profit business, obviously the goal is to drive revenue and maximize profits, and those profits go to owners or shareholders. Once expenses are covered, any profit is distributed to these stakeholders. In contrast, nonprofits do not distribute profits to any individual. Instead, that revenue goes into the organization to support that mission, whatever that mission may be, if it's providing services, advocating for policy changes, or funding research. Another distinction lies in the ownership. For-profit businesses are privately owned, whether by an individual, a group, or a corporation. And if they're publicly traded, they can sell shares of stock. Nonprofits, on the other hand, they have no owners. Instead, they're governed by a board of directors, which typically are comprised of volunteers who provide that oversight and make sure that the organization stays aligned with its mission. There are also some important differences in tax status. Most nonprofits are eligible for tax-exempt status under IRS guidelines, specifically the 501c3 designation in the United States, although there are a lot of other 501c designations. But what this means is that they don't pay federal income taxes, and donors can often deduct contributions from their own taxes. For-profit businesses, however, they are taxed on their earnings, and then they distribute profits to shareholders, and sometimes that is also taxed as well. Now, despite these differences, both nonprofits and for-profits, they both require effective management, strategic planning, good financial oversight, and the same things to succeed. Nonprofit executives must handle everything from fundraising and program development to managing staff and volunteers. Running a nonprofit can be just as challenging, and I argue possibly more, than running a for-profit business. So just because it's a nonprofit does not mean it's easy. So to sum it up, nonprofits exist to serve the public, reinvest their revenue into the mission, and they have a significant economic impact by creating jobs and contributing to economic growth. And they do share operational similarities with for-profit businesses, but the way they use their revenue, their governance structure, and their tax status make them distinct.